What is going on, everybody? Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome into the Pump Fake. Jarrett Bailey with you as always. And a lot of news today that we'll talk about ahead of Chiefs Raiders. It's set to come on Black Friday. About an hour or so at the time of recording. But first, going to dive into the latest out of Chicago, where the Bears have fired head coach Matt Eberflus. It was announced earlier today that Matt Eberflus is no longer the head coach of the Bears after the entire disaster fiasco that took place at the end of their Thanksgiving matchup with the Detroit Lions. And Chicago struggled in the first half of that game. Came back in the second half. Keenan Allen had 2 touchdown grabs. Caleb Williams looked a lot stronger in the second half than he did in the first. At one point left in the second quarter, and Caleb was 2 of 6 for 6 yards. It was an incredibly slow first half for the Bears. They come back in the second half, and Detroit has to punt with little time remaining. The Bears have made it a 3-point game. It's 23-20. Punt gets down at Chicago's own 1, and they get it into Detroit territory. Williams put together, a really solid drive, despite a lot of penalties, despite a lot of sacks. And it gets down to second and long. There's 30-odd seconds remaining. Caleb gets sacked, and they still have a timeout in their pocket. And, everybody in the stadium, everybody watching at home is assuming, okay, they're going to take that last timeout here, just try to get a few yards, take the timeout, kick a potential game-tying field goal, send this thing to overtime. But what happens instead is they are slow to get back to the line. Caleb's taking his good old time to yell out signals, and once everybody's set, time is ticking off the clock, and you hear Nance and Romo in the booth being like, bro, snap the ball. And even so, okay, there's 6 seconds left when he snaps it. If he takes it, throws a quick slant, gets him 4 yards closer, they can call a timeout right away and get the kicking unit onto the field. It still wouldn't have been great, but if they kick a game-tying field goal and eventually win in overtime, nobody's talking about it. It's just looked at as great drive by Caleb to get this thing into overtime. Instead, he launches a long ball, it falls incomplete, and the game's over. And then after the game, Eberflus defends the decision, says that he liked the play call. We liked where we were at there, and that was that. And the Bears lost their 6th consecutive game after starting 4-2. And so earlier today, on Friday, Eberflus took the stand to talk to the media, which everybody then presumed to believe, okay, well, he's not getting fired, at least not this week. And then 2 hours later, the Bears announced that they fired Matt Eberflus. And so just 2 consecutive days of organizational dysfunction on the field, behind the scenes, in the front office, has just played out in the worst of ways. Offensive coordinator, by the way, interim offensive coordinator Thomas Brown will now also be the interim head coach. Because remember, they fired Shane Waldron a few weeks ago because the offense was just not working. Thomas Brown took over. The offenses looked better. But now Thomas Brown having to wear a lot of hats there. And I highly doubt he'll be the guy who gets the head coaching job. And so a few people have asked me both on Twitter, on threads, hey, who do you think is going to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears? And a lot of people, there's going to be the coaching carousel as there is every year. There's now 3 head coaching jobs available with the Saints, the Jets, and now the Bears. And when it comes to Chicago, a lot of people are saying, oh, Ben Johnson, if he would want to come across, work with Caleb Williams, stay within the division, maybe that's a name to watch. That's been the name to watch for the past, this is going to be the third straight offseason. Other names include Joe Brady of the Buffalo Bills, who's their current offensive coordinator. The Bills are 15-3 since he took over as offensive coordinator last year after they fired Ken Dorsey. Potentially Aaron Glenn, if you're staying in Detroit, maybe they poach their defensive coordinator. And after the work that he's done this season with all the injuries that they've had, he's certainly going to be a name that is going to be a hot one during this head coaching search for a lot of these teams in 2025. But to me, for the sake of Caleb Williams, I don't think taking a swing on a first-time head coach would necessarily be the best idea, at least not this year, because of the other names that will be in the pool. And while Ben Johnson could be successful, while Joe Brady could be successful, especially with Joe Brady, like it just feels too soon, right? Where I think that Joe Brady's eventually going to get a head coaching job. I know that Bills fans are really hoping he takes the Ben Johnson route. I was like, look, I'm not going to just take any job. I'm going to take some time to, stay in Buffalo, continue getting better at this before I take a head coaching job. I'm sure a lot of Bills fans would really love if he did that. I don't know if he's gonna. He's certainly going to have his options this offseason, especially if he wanted to go to New Orleans, a place that he has history. So when it comes to Brady, I don't know if the Bears should go that route. Same thing with, an Aaron Glenn, who could be good, but, we saw Eberflus did a really good job as defensive coordinator in Indianapolis, got his first head coaching gig in Chicago, and it didn't work out. They've done a lot of the first-time head coaching things. They did it with Matt Nagy. They did it with Eberflus. So I think this year especially, they should do all they can to hire Mike Vrabel, a guy who has proven to be a top head coach in the NFL, helped turn around the Titans, helped make them a perennial playoff team, helped take them to an AFC championship game, and was kind of scapegoated once the team began to age, once A.J. Brown was traded, a move that, by the way, he did not sign off on, which was clear by his reaction in the war room during the draft when it took place, because he was visibly pissed that they did that. And then they drafted Treylon Burks. Obviously, that hasn't worked out. And this past offseason, he was very surprisingly fired. And so for a team like Chicago, when you have a rookie quarterback, or a young quarterback who's going to be going into his second year, I think stability and having a guy at the top of it who's been there, done that, has helped turn around a franchise before, I think that would be the best route to go, rather than a first-time head coach who's never done it before and again, Joe Brady might end up being a great head coach. Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, the same thing. But at the same time, they might not be. We know that Mike Vrabel is a really good head coach. So do all you can to go get him. Have a nice staff built around him to help Caleb, because that's got to be your biggest focus right now. Vrabel can be, the defensive guy as he was in Tennessee, while also doing what he did in Tennessee, letting Arthur Smith take care of the offense, letting Matt LaFleur take care of the offense, both of which ended up getting head coaching jobs because of how good the offense was. So if I'm Chicago, the name that I have circled at the top of my list, it's not Ben Johnson, it's not Aaron Glenn, it's not Brady, and it sure as hell, I know that there's going to be some murmurs about it, hell is not Cliff Kingsbury, it's Mike Vrabel. Go and get the proven guy who's going to have his fair share of suitors this offseason, and do all you can to lock him down. Because I don't think it's going to be a mass teardown for the Bears, because as bad as Eberflus has been, Ryan Poles has done a pretty solid job at team building. And I understand that he was kind of the guy standing on the table for Matt Eberflus, and that's fine. Nobody bats 1,000 doing this. But when you look at the moves that he's made since becoming general manager, I mean, they've been good moves to bring in established talent. Bringing in DJ Moore, trading for Keenan Allen, trading for Montez Sweat. The defense has gotten so much better over the last calendar year, where they are legitimately one of the best in football. And a lot of the moves that they've made, the draft picks that they've had, Tyreek Stevenson's panned out. Kyler Gordon on the defensive end, Jaquan Brisker. Though I do think Brisker was in the previous establishment. But regardless, the moves that he has made, they have been good ones in terms of bringing in established guys and trying to really turn around the offense, especially this offseason. He clearly recognized the mistakes of the previous regime with Justin Fields and wanted to do all he could to get Caleb Williams a lot of weapons. That's why you draft Rome Odunze. That's why you trade for a Keenan Allen. And on the other side of the ball, trading for Montez Sweat last year to have an established top-tier defensive lineman going into this season with a core of younger guys. That's a smart way to build a team. So, yeah, it wasn't his smartest idea to keep Eberflus around. Even if it looked like it was working earlier in the season when they were 4-2, obviously, it's come back to bite them a little bit. But Ryan Poles, I would say, has done a really solid job of building the roster. It's been more so on the coaching than the general manager. So I think that Ryan Poles is going to be sticking around, and I think that's probably the best idea. And should that be the case, the owners, everybody needs to go all in on getting Mike Vrabel on board. And whatever staff that he builds around them, or around him, and builds around Caleb. Now, we've seen him do it before with Tennessee, where, they bring in Ryan Tannehill, who everybody's like, okay, well, he'll be the backup to Marcus Mariota, I guess. And if Mariota, obviously he struggled. They put in Tannehill, and then they make an incredible run in the playoffs. So we've seen Mike Vrabel do this before. He is I would say he's one of the 10 best head coaches in football, and it's incredible that he didn't get a head coaching job after being fired. Then again, when he was fired, it felt late in the process. It was pretty surprising that it happened to begin with. And it's not like it happened in season where, during the playoffs, you can conduct interviews with other teams. It was a shocking thing for Vrabel to get fired. So I think that when he was employed, he was one of the 10 best head coaches in football. And if you can get that in Chicago, a guy who has been a long tenured head coach with established playoff success, with no disrespect to Ryan Tannehill, but not top tier quarterback play. I think Caleb Williams, in terms of potential, has the potential to be the best quarterback that Vrabel's ever coached by a wide margin. And you look at, the other pieces on the offense that we've already talked about, a really solid receiving trio in DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Keenan Allen. Cole Kmet's a nice tight end. They just need to fix the offensive line. That's going to be their biggest priority in terms of team building in the offseason is, all right, let's fix the offensive line and keep Caleb upright. So Vrabel would be the guy at the top of my list if I was the Bears. Just because you can't afford to take another swing and a miss on a first-time head coach. You've done that plenty of times already. Go and get an established guy who's been there, done that, and can help turn your team around and do it quickly. Now, for the second thing I wanted to talk about today, the Miami Dolphins. And if you saw me on VSiN this past week, talking best bets for the week, one of them was Green Bay -3.5 at home on Thanksgiving night. And what I said was the Dolphins are getting so much hype for beating nobody on this winning streak. And we know how bad they play in the cold. 3.5 is a gift from the sports books. So you watch that, or if you listen to me, you tailed that and you made a little bit of money on Thanksgiving night. And it's not just that the Dolphins lost this game, it's that they lose every big game they play. Dating back to the start of last season, here are some notable big games that the Dolphins have played in. At Buffalo, 48-20 loss. At Philadelphia, 31-17 loss. Against the Chiefs in Germany, 21-14 loss, but they were trailing big at halftime, and the game was much more in favor of the Chiefs than the score showed. At Baltimore, 56-19 loss. Against the Bills, 21-14 loss with the division on the line at home in the final week of the year. At Kansas City in the wild card round, 26-7 loss. Against the Bills in week 2, 31-10 loss. At Buffalo a couple weeks ago, 30-27 loss. And then at Green Bay on Thanksgiving, 30-17 loss. They can't beat good teams. And it's not to say that they are basement dwellers themselves, but they are not a good team. They are a middle-of-the-pack team that can beat the hell out of Denver and put up 70 last year. That's great. But the Miami Dolphins are the best bad team in football, I would say. They can beat up all the other bad teams, which kind of propels themselves up to being a middling team. But once you face the Kansas Cities, the Philadelphias, the Buffaloes, the Baltimores, when you routinely get the hell beat out of you, hey, guess what? You're not a good team. And they have shown that consistently since Mike McDaniel took over as head coach. So I'm gonna read just some quick bullet point numbers for you real quick. So since 2022, the Dolphins, they are 25-21, 0-2 in the playoffs. Another team, 20-25, 1-1 in the playoffs. Yeah, that second team's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, for all of the hype and the sound bites that Daniel gives, and everybody eats it up because they think that they love his quirkiness or whatever. What's he got to show for it? Putting up 70 against Denver in September? Great. There has been nothing that the Dolphins have accomplished outside of a few high-scoring regular season showings that you can say, yeah, Mike McDaniel's been a success. Yeah, Tua Tagovailoa has been a success. And I told everybody, back when they gave him an extension, that's a mistake. And every Dolphins dumbass in my Twitter mentions is like, oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Dolphins are going to win the division this year. Going to make a deep run. Tua's going to help them make a deep run in the playoffs. Well, here we are. Now they're 5-7. They're not going to be a playoff team after paying Tua Tagovailoa a lot of money. After giving Jalen Waddle a lot of money. This is not a team that is going to make a deep run in January, especially when you have to go to Buffalo. You have to go to Baltimore, to Pittsburgh, to Cincinnati, to Kansas City. You're not going to be successful. This is a team that cannot win in cold weather. Tua is now, 0-8 in games under 40 degrees. There's a reason I've said for the past 2 years, yeah, the Dolphins don't scare me. This is a team that people get blinded by beatdowns of bad teams and confuse that with being a good team. No. Yes, good teams beat down bad teams. But good teams also beat other good teams, which the Miami Dolphins do not do. So from now on, don't talk to me about the Miami Dolphins. They are an irrelevant team when it comes to playoff aspirations, when it comes to Super Bowl aspirations. They might sneak into the playoffs like they have the past couple years, but they are immediately just going to be another footnote for the Chiefs or the Bills. They are going to be another small step that they have to overcome. They're not a hurdle. The Miami Dolphins are not a hurdle. The Miami Dolphins are a step. You don't got to jump over Miami. You can just slightly lift your foot and get to where you need to go. But this is not a team in Miami that should scare any good team in football. And the last year and a half or so pretty much proves that, especially in the AFC, where you've played Kansas City twice, you lost both times. You got the hell beat out of you by Baltimore. You are 0-4 in your last 4 games against the Buffalo Bills. You've beaten them once since, 2019? Josh Allen's only lost to Miami twice. This is not a team that is going to make a deep playoff run anytime soon. This is not a quarterback that you should have given that much money to. And it's pretty clear that Miami Dolphins fans are already over the whole Mike McDaniel shtick. That's great that he can give you goofy sound bites and he wears Yeezys and he vapes on the sideline. Every college freshman who's late for their geology class every Monday vapes too. But when Doug Peterson has more playoff wins than you over the past 2 seasons, that's probably a problem. Probably not great. I'm very over the whole Miami Dolphins thing that we do every year. I shouldn't say we, that everybody else does every year, because I push back against it every year. And I did it this past offseason too. And a lot of Dolphins fans took to this channel, took to Twitter, took to everything, that I was doing, whether it be written or podcast, and made sure to let me know how wrong I was. Well, would you look at that? I wasn't. And when everybody and their mother was saying, yeah, this is the year that the Bills are going to take a step back, the Dolphins are going to win the division, that graphic going around of Rich Eisen and Kurt Warner picking the Dolphins to win the division. I'm sorry, Rich Eisen and Steve Mariucci, while Kurt Warner and Gerald McCoy picked the Jets. Oh, and here the Buffalo Bills are, 1 win away from clinching the AFC East for the 5th consecutive year. So don't talk to me about the Miami Dolphins anymore, because I'm not going to listen to it. I've been forced to listen to it for the past 2 years, and I've said to anyone that would listen, yeah, they're not good. And here we are. Never wrong, just early. And hell, I wouldn't even say I was early on that. Because what have the Dolphins done in that span to make you say, yeah, this is a good team? They're not. Because, yeah, good teams beat bad teams, but good teams also can compete, at minimum, compete with the other good teams. Miami hasn't shown the ability to even do that. So good luck the rest of the year to Miami, but this is an irrelevant team. Absolutely irrelevant. So we'll be back on Monday after the Week 13 Sunday slate, which should be a lot of fun. We got Steelers Bengals. We got Bills 49ers on Sunday night, and then another potential primetime snow game. Buffalo's expected to get hit by some lake effect snow starting today, going into Monday. So should be a fun potential snow game in Buffalo. And we'll be here to break down the Week 13 slate with none other than Tyler Dunn. I love Ty Dunn. Go and subscribe to Go Long, by the way. So Ty Dunn will be here on Monday with me to break down everything that took place in Week 13. And it'll be a lot of fun. So everybody, appreciate you guys for tuning in to this impromptu pod. Didn't expect to do a show today. But amidst all of the Bears news and rumblings and my thoughts on Miami, I figured, yeah, I can probably just put this into a podcast today. So, yeah, no big preview show this week. Everybody just enjoy the weekend and time with their family. Hope everybody had a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. And like I said, we'll be back Monday with Ty Dunn to break down everything in Week 13. It'll be a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and making the pump fake part of your day. I'll see you Monday.